Forgive the creepy background. We are in my attic.
So today we are doing skill development number 3, attending to the client. I'm Lacey and I will be the counselor, and TJ here will be my client. In this particular scenario, I'm working with my client Shane, who is a 19-year-old male. At this visit, obviously, we're a couple months into his program and his treatment and whatnot. He's been having chemical dependency issues with alcohol and some substances like cocaine and prescription painkillers and things of that nature. That was his problem when he initially came in. He's kind of had a troubled background, troubled home life. But so this will just be obviously like a couple months in, so we obviously know each other, know what's going on, and we'll just get right into it here. Hi Shane, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
How are you doing today?
I'm alright.
Not too bad? Yeah. How has this past week been? Like, how, since we last saw each other, how have you been doing overall?
I don't know, I've still been kind of drinking. I went to a few meetings, but
Okay.
they help sometimes, and other times, I don't know.
Yeah, like, so do you just, okay, I see, do you kind of feel like you're just going through the motions?
Yeah, it
or
kind of feels like I'm just telling them what they want to hear.
Okay. So you don't really feel like it's helping, you just kind of feel like you're just kind of coasting through and just telling them what they want to hear in order to just kind of get through it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is there anything that you think you could do? Is there anything that you have been doing, like maybe even in the past or presently, that seems to have helped you more, or that you seem to enjoy doing more, or that you feel like you personally get more out of it? It doesn't feel like you're just going through the motions and just doing it to do it?
Well, I'm not really sure. I did quit using prescription drugs, though. I haven't touched anything for a few weeks.
That's fantastic. I mean, even a few weeks, that's great progress. Even a day that's great. That's awesome. So, so you said that you've been clean of prescription painkillers for, like, have you been using anything else?
I haven't been using anything else, just drinking.
Okay, so you've just been drinking. Well, I mean, granted, the drinking isn't a positive thing, but, quitting those initial things, like, are one big step at a time. You know what I mean? Any little progress is great, and to see you even just after a few months, cutting back and even quitting cold turkey, like I said, I know it's only been, like you said, with prescription painkillers, maybe even a few weeks, but still, that's a good thing, and especially, you know what I mean? Are you doing that, like, did you just quit it cold turkey, or
yeah,
like,
I just
I mean,
stopped.
if you don't want to get
everything.
into that, that's not a big deal, but I just, so you just,
I just
stop.
flushed everything. So.
Good for you. I mean, that can be initially one of the hardest things, especially depending on prolonged use and everything, the withdrawal symptoms and stuff. A lot of people, like, they refuse to. The hard thing is people usually never quit because they want to taper themselves down, and then they feel like they can't taper themselves down because they can't control it, and then they go back into full-blown relapses and things of that nature. So for you to essentially do that, and quitting cold turkey being one of the hardest things to honestly do, especially on your own, I totally commend you for that. That's amazing. That's a good thing. That's totally awesome. So I know we've talked about our last few sessions. We've kind of delved into, like, your past, your childhood a little, your family life, stuff with your dad. Is there anything you want to talk about having to do with that, or anything you just want to kind of get off your chest?
I just kind of discovered that, like, going through AA meetings, that I'm not the only one that's had, severely alcoholic parents and had to deal with that. So that's kind of nice to be able to speak with other people that are going through the same thing.
Right. Well, that's good. Yeah, that is good. Because it's nice to know that you're not alone, because a lot of times you can feel alone, you know what I mean? You think that, oh, you know what I mean? You might say you understand, but you don't understand what the hell I'm going through, you know what I mean? And to actually get that recognition that somebody actually knows what you're going through, like, that it can feel good. Like, oh, okay, you do know what I'm talking about. You're not just saying, like, oh, I know how you feel just to make me feel better.
Right.
So I just kind of want to talk about, I mean, if you're open, we don't have to, if you feel uncomfortable. How do you feel towards your dad? Like, because I know...
I don't really want to have a connection, at least right now, at all.
Okay.
It's not a healthy connection. It's kind of where all my shit stemmed from, so I decided that that's just not good.
Okay, so you would say that probably the root of your problems, especially moving forward into adult life, and especially your using, you would say comes from your father and seeing...
Stems from what I've seen and watching it happen.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense, because, I mean, a huge part of who we are as people comes from how we were raised, unfortunately, and sometimes, most of the time, you can't pick your parents, and that can be very hard. But so, this, and granted, like I said, this is just trying to be a positive session here, and if you don't want to talk about anything, you don't have to. So I just kind of want to talk about, because you said going to the AA meetings now being more, not completely sober, but taking those steps into sobriety and being sober of other things. You said those things that, you know what I mean, are in place to help you, you just don't really care for them, or you feel like you're kind of going through the motions, you know what I mean, just to cope with it. What are some things you've done or tried in the past, like with, you know what I mean, pain from your father, or, you know what I mean, your childhood and things like that? What are some things you've done or do in the past, whether positive or negative, that you've tried to cope with those feelings of trauma that you've experienced?
Well, I don't really know. I just kind of started drinking less in the past few weeks, actually, instead of every day, like every couple of days or on the weekend, just to try to keep a sober mind.
Right. That makes sense. And that's, you know what I mean, because, like I said, quitting cold turkey can be the hardest thing, and you know what I mean, still, you know, we want to get on that path of sobriety, but, you know, a couple drinks on the weekend here or there, you know, isn't as bad as, you know, going on a week-long bender or a weekend-long bender,
Right.
You know what I mean, and drinking to the point of excess where it's so, you know, gluttonously unhealthy that it can lead to the point of, like, dangerous, where those points where you end up in the hospital are more worse things than that.
Right.
So I think, this session particularly is going really well, and you have been making some great progress actually in the sessions we've had previously before this one. I think that even though I'm asking you some maybe not the most easiest questions and they're a little on the difficult side, I think that you're having great communication with me, especially from the first initial visit. You've really kind of de-thought a lot, and you've been willing to open up to me, you know what I mean, and share some of those things that you've been feeling. And I just think that's really great, and I want to let you know that and give you that feedback that
Thank you.
That's very good. That's very, very good. So, like you said, you kind of, like you said before, when you were younger, you kind of numbed the pain from, like, your childhood and the stuff with your dad, with drinking and drug use and that kind of thing, and all that kind of stems from that. How about, and you don't have to share that at all, but about how young would you say when maybe you had your first drink, or you first started using, or felt even the urge to...
I don't know, I started drinking when I was around 7.
Okay. So from the previous trauma you experienced growing up, you've been abusing drugs and alcohol to help you to sort of numb that pain, you would say?
Yeah, it kind of just helps you block it out for a while.
Right. And I mean, I can, you know what I mean, totally understand that, because, you know what I mean, I, you know, grew up with not the best father in my life, too, and he, you know what I mean, before I was born, he sobered up, but with my siblings, he was a very bad alcoholic, and... You know what I mean? So I can kind of understand where you're coming from. And, you know, that's something that I've dealt with personally, so that's the only reason I feel comfortable sharing that with you. You know what I mean? But I feel like sometimes, especially when building a relationship with a client, it's good to share those things, you know what I mean? Because then it makes you feel comfortable, and then, like you said, you respond well knowing that other people have been through the same thing.
Right.
So I feel like that just almost even helps, you know, build that coercion and, you know, bond between us, which I think is a good thing. So one thing that I think is good, that I think to leave with of this session, regardless of the struggles you've been through, you seem to think, you know, fairly highly of yourself, or you don't seem to think very highly of yourself, even though you are making some great progress. You seem very hard on yourself, like maybe you don't deserve or you can't achieve good things, that you're just meant for bad things, when that's not the case at all, no matter what somebody's circumstance. if you try hard, good things can happen for you, regardless of where you come from and who you are. That's not true at all. Where I noticed that you are very smart, determined, and can do a lot if you put your mind to it. So obviously, you know what I mean, we contrast and conflict with those two ideas, but I just want you to know overall that your self-portrayal of yourself does not match up with the great progress you've made. You need to give yourself a lot more credit, which I know can be a hard thing, but you really are doing well, and I think you need to give yourself the credit for that, because you are doing very well. And I look forward to seeing you again and having these initial visits and maybe seeing where you are a few months down the line again.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.